Okay, hello everyone. My name is Mimi Marie, and I am here with my lovely friend Sarah Renee. Um, Hi, I'm so excited to have you on, and just to kind of dance in this conversation. And I just want to say thank you for saying yes, because this is a brand new project for me. And my intention with these interviews is to really share people's stories of overcoming tragedy, overcoming struggles, addiction, recovery, and, using those challenges and things that people have gone through to really to create something with their lives. And for many people, it's like creating something that's bigger than themselves. And you were on my Rising Woman project a few years ago. And so you're still a perfect person to have on and to share your story. You have such a beautiful, unique story. So I'm just so excited to share that with my community and your community. And just to inspire and help others. So we'll just jump right in and we'll dance with the conversation. So you can go ahead and introduce yourself. Give us a little intro of who you are.
Perfect. Well, first, thank you so much for having me. I was so excited to come be involved with another project of yours. And I feel like it's just so amazing that you're doing this and sharing our stories with people and just creating a platform to help inspire so many people. So thank you. I'm Sarah Renee, and I am a medium and a spiritual coach / spiritual advisor. I'm also an ordained minister and a bunch of other things, but but my main work is I do medium sessions, which for those of you who don't know, mediumship is basically bringing through people's loved ones who have passed away. So bringing them through from the other side, and then also bringing through guidance from like the angels and different guides for people individually. And then I also teach classes and I do coaching work to help people through obstacles, to help people with transformation. I have a spiritual transformation program actually. And then, also to help people embrace their own intuitive gifts, because that's such a passion of mine.
Beautiful. And I love your story of how you came to this. So I want to really start at the beginning. So I know, I've heard your story before, but I know that you didn't know that this was a gift of yours all along, right? So if you could just start at the beginning and tell us, before you realized this was your calling and your purpose in life, what was life like for you?
Yeah. So when I was little, like very, like 2 years old, 3 years old, for that age range, I was really afraid a lot of the time. And especially at night, I couldn't sleep in my own bed. I would always run into my parents' room because when all the lights went out, like I saw these really dark, scary beings. And I think my parents just thought it, like we talk about with all kids, like, oh, it's her imagination, it's the monster under the bed thing. But for me, it was like truly life or death. Like, I remember one time it was a suggestion of like, why don't you put the lock, just like lock her in there, basically. My poor parents, I think back, must have felt so terrible, but like they tried to do that. And I remember my dad had always told me to like throw the lamp through the glass window if there was ever a fire and I needed it to get out. And I was like trying to break the window when they caved and opened the door because I thought I was dying. Or like this thing was going to get me. Like it was so real, and I just remember it being like a really tall, like black thing, like shadowy creature. And then when I was 5, my grandmother passed away. And this was like my first positive experience with this world. Was she passed away after a long battle with cancer. And my mom got the call in the middle of the night. She died at the hospital. And I was like insistent, so I was 5 years old, that we go. I was like, she will not leave until we go and say goodbye. And so my mom takes me to the hospital, like so afraid she's going to traumatize her poor kid. Like, but I wasn't having it. And so, we go and we see her. And I remember, like clear as day, sitting on the hospital bed and having my grandmother sitting next to me, and her telling me that she was going to go away, but that I could still talk to her, that she would still keep an eye on me, and I would still be safe. And like we had this long talk, and then she was like, okay, so I'm going to go, and like you won't be able to see me the same way anymore, but I'm still here. And I was just like, oh, okay, like that, like just so matter of fact. And so I just got up and I was like, okay, we can go home now, grandma's gone, like
Wow.
it's all right. And that really helped me through, because she lived with us for a long time before she had to go into the hospital at the end. So I was very, very close with her. So that helped me through that loss. And honestly, I really feel like that became probably the foundation of my faith, in a way, of knowing that there was another side, like, for going forward. And so then, I was that kid, I was always like making spells and talking to animals and like all of that stuff. And then in school, I learned that not everybody does that. Like that's not always normal. And so it's very confused. And then when even like getting into like late middle school, high school, I felt everybody's stuff, like, and I felt it like extreme empath, but like as if it was my own. And I remember just feeling so weird. It's so different, of like, I'm not supposed to know these things. And as much as there was like a part of me that wanted to be brave enough to embrace that part of me, I was so afraid of being different. Like at that age, it was like all I wanted to do was be liked
Yeah.
and fit in and maybe even be loved. Like that was it. That was my main priority. So because I also struggled with a lot of insecurity. I often felt like anxiety because I was feeling everybody's stuff. So I was so confused. So, I felt very awkward in social situations, even though I was rather outgoing. So I was like constantly like push, pull, push, pull. And I remember the summer between 8th grade and high school, I smoked weed for the first time. So I actually smoked weed before I ever drank. And that was like, oh, I can like relax. Like everybody's stuff just like isn't so loud. And I didn't know that it was everybody's stuff. I thought it was just something wrong with me. I thought I was like really like sick, like or something. Like I didn't understand. So that really started to become my like, okay, I can use this and I can calm down around people. And like a few weeks later, it wasn't long, drank for the first time. And that was like, oh my gosh, I feel confident. All of my insecurities are gone. I'm not hearing anything or feeling anything like that. I thought it was my secret to life.
Yeah.
It was just like, this is how I'm going to do life. Like I found it. I'm good. I can be normal. I can be funny. I can be like, and I don't have to worry about all these intense, visions and just crazy things that I would experience, like making me feel awkward anymore.
Yeah.
And so I started drinking almost every day, probably that summer. And then like even in high school, I'd take vodka in a water bottle to school. We'd smoke weed in the bathroom. Like I was using something, if I had just smoked pot, I considered myself sober. So that was like, I was pretty much loaded the whole 4 years.
Yeah. It's so interesting because those characteristics, right? The insecurities, the anxieties, the not knowing where you fit in and then trying to fit in and all this stuff, those are often where it starts for so many people. Like, right? Like if you listen to the stories, people's addiction and recovery stories, that's how the beginning started. It was like this huge relief And it was like all of a sudden we didn't have to worry anymore about how we were going to fit in. We had our confidence for the first time, right?
It's like the safety. It's like feeling
Yeah.
safe almost around other people.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And that's like when I first, because I resisted meetings for the longest time. And when I went and I heard that in so many people's stories, I was like, oh my gosh, like these are my people.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
that's what I felt.
Yeah. And so that's how we met, right? Was in the room.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yep. Mhm. Yeah. And then we know some mutual people outside of the rooms too. And so
Yeah. A bunch of them, right? I know.
we're gonna cross paths somewhere along the way.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. So, okay. So how did that play out through your teenage years?
Yeah. So my addiction got very bad. And I was still, because my gift just, I look back and like I see, I'm like, wow, like I feel like God was like relentless with like, you have this gift. Can you please just like embrace it already? Because
Right. So even in the midst of all of that, you were still.
it was like I got to a point where no amount of alcohol could silence it.
Mm-hmm.
Like it just kept knocking. And
Mm-hmm.
so it would look like I was so easily influenced by my friends because I had zero boundaries with energy. So I was taking on all their stuff and thinking I'm them and they're me. And I had no like, and so then I entered into a really toxic relationship and I completely like by the time that ended, I didn't know what my favorite song was. I didn't know what food I liked to eat. Like I had no information about who I was just on my own. It was
Mm-hmm.
all just like, and most of that, like it sounds textbook codependent, and I did work through codependent stuff, and we were active in addiction. So, there's a lot of that stuff in there. But I also look back and like knowing my ability and how I feel people's stuff is through my body. Now I have so much more compassion for that me because I'm like, she was just like extremely psychic and didn't know it and was really feeling all of his stuff and then thinking that that was her stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And so in high school, so it turned into a cocaine and meth addiction by the time I was 15.
Mm-hmm.
And then at 17, school got in the way of my using. And so I dropped out after 2 weeks into my senior year and was using all the time. And I hit my first rock bottom in September. Yeah, right around 9/11. So September of 2001.
Mm-hmm.
And that was me in a drug house. I didn't know where I was, didn't know these guys. I was with a friend. I'd been awake for many, many days. And I was sitting on this couch and there was an iguana on the wall. The guy actually had a pet iguana. Like I thought I was hallucinating. So I double checked afterwards. But there was this iguana on the wall and the person that lived there was paranoid. So there was like, I counted like 5 locks on the door, all locked. And then there were like those little slider locks at the top and the bottom of the door. And there were bars on all the windows. So there was like no way out. And the drug dealer guy comes in and he has this knife and it's dripping in blood. And he sits down on the couch and he puts his arm around me and he's cleaning the knife off, talking about how he just got in an altercation with somebody. And I'm like, I don't even know if I could call 911. I don't know what to tell them because I don't know where I am. Like, I don't know what to do. I don't even know this guy's name. Like, and I heard this voice. And the thing about it was so clear and assertive, but it was also so loving. And I call the voice God, is how I understand it. And the voice just said, "Are you done yet?" And I was like, if you can get me through this night, I promise you, I will go home, I will get clean, I will get it together. Like, I will not keep doing this. And even though I had promised that promise a million times before, there was something about this experience that was so real. And sure enough, something ended up happening. We got like right out of there. It was like, I don't really remember, but something happened and she had to leave and I don't know, it was like all this, drug related drama.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I
Okay.
got I got out and I did what I said. I went home and I told my mom what was happening. And I went through 2 week of withdrawals in my bedroom. And my mom every morning slipped me like Louise Hay cards and Dr. Dyer quotes under the door. And so that was like kind of my first intro to like the spiritual self-help world. And where that passion really started because it helped me so much through one of the hardest times, of my life. And so coming out of that, I was able to make up all my classes and I actually graduated early and then was able to walk with my original graduating class, which was huge for me. And I went to, no, so I was 17. I kept drinking still, on and off. And then another, which would be a really long story, so I won't go into it, but car accident story where an officer came into my life and I believe that he was also divinely orchestrated because he ended up the coffee shop that I worked at was on his beat. And so he would come in all the time and check on me because he was like, there's something in you. You're not those people. You're not on that path. Like you have something about you. And he told me, he's like, you could be a cop. Like you're smart, you're brave. And he was like speaking all of these things to me. And he was the scariest man that I've had ever met. He would still intimidate me, but so I think that like at that age, I really needed somebody kind of intimidating to like give me a talking to, but also like call something forward out of me. And so that he definitely helped save my life because that put me on this trajectory towards I can use my experience to help other people. And at that point in time, it was through law enforcement was the goal. And so I was going that path. I was actually, going on ride-alongs a lot. I was studying criminal justice at the community college, working at Starbucks, and I'd quit drinking. And and then I was like, should I test for the law enforcement? Should I not? Like I was trying to figure out exactly what to do. One of my friends referred me to a astrologer / medium. So I go to her just as like my clients come to me, just like help me find clarity.
Yeah.
I'm 18 at this point. And she says, do you know you're a medium? And I'm like, what are you talking about? And she's like, have you ever, felt other people's stuff like or had psychic experiences? Like prophecy or, she ran through like a lot of this, the things that I experienced, or, visions that ended up coming true or, learning things about people that they didn't share with you. And I'm like, yes, like, seeing ghost or having paranormal activity, like, yes. And so that session, it was like my whole life made sense.
And you were 18 at this
I was 18 when that happened.
Mm-hmm.
And so I immediately left that session and was like, because that was at the time the show The Medium was on TV with Arquette, and she was like the medium who worked with law enforcement. So I was like, this is my thing. This merges both of these paths. I'm going to be a cop and a medium, and I'm going to solve crimes. And so little 18-year-old me just like dove in, like zero boundaries energetically, zero protection. All I knew how to do was sage, like great, still sage, but I had no boundaries or anything else to really like back it up.
Right.
So, and there was a local homicide that involved some kids we went to school with. And so I was like, okay, it felt a little off to me, something about it. So I was like, this is going to be like my first like practice case, And tuning into that, for one, it kind of became an obsession. And then two, it ended up being much more dangerous than I realized. And so there were dark entities, around. I was seeing the killings, and then things would come in my dreams, and I didn't know like what was a nightmare because it was so traumatizing, or what was real. And I called these other psychics that I thought, I'm like, what about like this house down the street? Like, could you, where this person, one of the perpetrators lived, it's like, I want to go. I feel like it's haunted. I feel like there's something bad down there. They drove by, they like do this for a living, and they wouldn't even drive down the street. They're like, we won't turn on the street, like, stay away.
Wow.
They're like, you're not versed enough to handle this, and so that, because it had the entity and the darkness danger to it, and then the physical danger
Right.
of thinking I was invincible and not really maybe
It sounds like you were like tapped into the dark side of both worlds.
Mhm.
And
it was like I was trying to figure out, like, so I was kind of tapping into like what I would say now, knowing what I know and how I work on homicides, is like I was tapping in more to the murderer's energy
mhm.
versus the victims, which now I would never choose to do.
Yeah.
Like, I know other mediums work like that, but I would not. It was too
Yeah.
traumatizing for me. So that was like kind of it made me just put up that wall again, because I was so afraid, and I was still, 18 and 19 years old, and I didn't really have the desire to do tons of inner work like that deep yet, like I thought I was doing inner work because I was reading all the books and stuff, but like I wasn't really like digging and excavating and healing and like really practicing the inner work. So I disconnected from them again, bounced around trying to figure out what I feel like I was obsessed with, like we were talking about control before this. So like trying to control my path of like, how can I like find like the loophole with God, and like just like maybe embrace this part of my path, like just a little bit, but in a way that like I can control.
Yeah.
Like that.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
So, fast forward mid-20s, my family and I move out to San Diego. So all of this was in Arizona. Move out
Okay.
to San Diego, and I discovered yoga, and that was so healing for me. Also at this point, I had started drinking again, because I didn't think that I was an addict, because I looked back and I was like, I quit hard drugs by myself in high school, and I didn't do any programs, and I never relapsed with drugs. So I
Yeah.
was like, I don't need a program.
Yeah. Similar story here.
Mhm. Yeah. So I was like, no, like, because other people that I talked to, nobody did that. So I was like, see, I'm not that person.
Yeah.
And so I gave myself all these rules with the drinking, of like, no drinking and driving, no binge drinking, like all these nice, good set of rules that I broke probably within a week or two.
Yeah.
And, but with the yoga and the fact that I was trying to still shut off my gift, it didn't feel like it was derailing me at the time. It felt like I could keep it under control
Mm-hmm.
with living like one foot in the spiritual world and one foot still as party girl.
Mm.
And I felt like I had everything managed. And I kind of had like my spiritual group of friends, and then I had my like Starbucks group of friends, and then I had my party friends, which were a little bit of both. And it was like, okay, if I can just keep that over there and that over there, like, and that there, like everything's fine. I'm fine. Everything's great. And it was okay. I think I needed the foundation that yoga gave me before I could get sober, to be honest. Or I would have needed it in early sobriety, because I feel like getting to be in my body and learn that I was taking on other people's energy and how to not do that anymore, or how to process energy, how to feel some of my feelings
Mhm.
and deal with like old PTSD stuff and fear and all of that, like through these somatic purposes. Like I needed all of that. I feel like honestly, it really served me having it before going through the deep AA work. Because I
Well, yeah, I just feel like that's like the foundation for all types of healing, right? Is the connection that we have with ourselves. Like we don't even know what we're dealing with or where to go on our path if we're not connected to ourselves. So that's what yoga provides. And I mean, there's so many modalities that provide that. But it was similar for me, it wasn't until I got really more in touch with myself, my inner world, and really, like you were saying, like listening to yourself and listening to your body, the somatic healing is what provides the foundation for everything.
Yeah, it was really, really huge for me. And I know there's studies that now show that yoga and recovery like actually makes a difference.
Mhm.
I forget the actual statistics, but I keep hearing it and I'm like, wow, like no wonder, because it really did make a big difference for me. And then also just starting to get some of the like learning about energy work, because finally, like I settled on this compromise with God of like, okay, I will teach you yoga and then I'll do energy healing. Maybe I'll do angel messages and then we're good. So
And then you can still have your other world over here. So you had a
I
good
don't
deal.
have to open up to the mediumship stuff.
Yeah.
So I was doing that, still working at Starbucks. And it's funny, like I was just in this, like I was learning all of the marketing. I was working with all the mentors. I mean, I was probably working, I don't even know how many hours a week, because I was seeing clients before, 8-hour shifts at Starbucks and then on my days off, like, and I just was not moving forward. And I
Mhm.
really didn't think that my drinking was causing it, because I wasn't drinking in the morning, but I was drinking almost every night, probably at least 6 nights a week. I
Mhm.
never blacked out. And it's kind of interesting because my body, because I would get these like awful hangovers, like alcohol makes me so sick,
Yeah.
and what I learned, I recently did my genetics and like a health checkup with a functional medicine doctor. And I have like genes that make it where I don't process alcohol well.
Mhm.
Like,
Which
so
probably a lot of us do,
yeah,
right?
yeah, exactly. But it's like I still was kind of like in my excuses. And one night, like I was messing up even like at Starbucks, which was a job I worked at for 10 years, like I could do in my sleep. And I was making mistakes there. And of course, to feel better from those mistakes, we went out drinking and partying. And the next day at work, I was sick on the bathroom floor all day. So my people working with me had to cover for me. And I remember I was laying on this public, disgusting bathroom floor, this dirty toilet, and that same voice came back. Are you
Mhm.
done yet? And I was like, I just remembered this, like, like I couldn't fight it anymore. Like it was almost comical, like of like, yes. Like
Yeah,
I'm
like you're
so
not going anywhere, are you?
like I quit. I
Yeah.
surrendered. Take it all. I have no more fight in me.
Mhm.
And that was the last time I drank. And so, which I'm coming up on 10 and a half years in April, since March. And so thank you. But yeah, that was, and I like to tell people, like, because my bottom, I wasn't in jail. Like it definitely would have gotten worse, I think, had I kept drinking. I definitely could have taken it to a worse place had I been like, nope, I'm not done yet.
Yeah, right. They call it yes. They call it yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So I feel very thankful that I stopped resisting that, like maybe I had this condition called alcoholism, and like that I just became willing to look at it and think about, like, is this a real problem for me? And so I quit drinking without AA for 6 months. And then at 6 months, I was in severe depression, and I've battled bouts of depression on and off. It's not like clinical, but they'll come in just like little bouts, and then I come out of them. And now I come out with my tools. I'm able, thankfully, to come out much quicker, than how I used to. And they don't happen nearly as much. But I was in this extreme depression, and I like wasn't knowing how to function in the world, and I still wasn't moving forward. It was like I was like that dry drunk, I think I was just angry with everybody, and I couldn't decide what I wanted to do. And I was like, God, I need your help. Like, if I'm going to make it through this, like, I really need help. And it was like an hour later, I had a friend be like, hey, we're going to an AA meeting tonight. It's like a really fun one, not uptight at all. If you want to come, because I knew I was kind of afraid. So, and I was like, all right, I'll go. And that was when I just started hearing people's stories. And I was like, oh my gosh, there's other people in the world that feel like me.
Yeah.
And that was like, I was like, wow, like, I think I have this, like, because I don't drink like a normal person. Like, normal people aren't like this and dealing with this. And so, I dove into AA, did the whole 90 and 90, got sponsored, did the step work. And then, it was like, I was doing the third step prayer, the thy will be done in my life, and like really working to turn my will over to God, and really calling in a divine intervention to help, instead of me trying to control my work and everything. And I had this client come to the house for a healing, and it was her ex's father came through. And so standing there doing her healing, and this male energy just comes through, and it felt like he just stepped in my energy. And then I looked down and I saw like my arms, like they were his arms, and it was almost like I was like in his body. But he felt very loving. And I was like, okay. And so I just started telling her, I'm like, this is going to sound really weird. I feel like there's this male energy here. And I started running through like what he felt like what his personality felt like, and just everything that I was feeling. She just burst into tears of like, oh my gosh, I've been carrying around, so much like guilt and worry, and just wondering like what he thinks. And because she was really close to him. And so I did this like reading, and then it was done. And I was like, that wasn't so bad. That actually felt really good. And it helped her so much. And so then I started realizing through this prayer and this connection with God, and through the energy work I had to learn from yoga, and the healing that I had gotten with AA, and it was like everything just kind of came into this perfect balance and harmony of like, I can do this. And so then I was like, okay, and I was kind of that person that was like, okay, if you're really sure that you want me to do this, like, send me some clients. Or like, are you really, really sure? Like, I need a sign.
Yeah, show me a sign. No, not that one. Show me a better one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
3,000 times a day. Like,
right.
Every time I asked, it was answered. And and then when I was like, it got to a point where in my meditations, I was feeling clear, like I need to leave the Starbucks job and do this full time. And I was like, okay, well, I need money then. Like I need enough clients to pay the bills. And it's like I got invited to go to a Brendan Burchard event for free,
Mhm.
which I couldn't have afforded. And it was one of his not just motivational, but his business coaching events. So
Oh,
that event gave me all the tools that I really needed to refine and like actually start thinking about my business as a business.
mm,
And so I started doing that. And so that's what I tell my clients a lot too, of like, it's like, there's still some effort involved. Like, even like when things work out, like it was an invite, it was a free thing, but I had to go and learn and then implement the tools that I learned.
yeah.
Like I had to go to that AA meeting and then do the work.
Yeah. There's still work, even when you're on your path, even when you're listening to the guidance and doing what you're supposed to do, there's still work.
Mhm.
Yeah.
But it did, so like the flow wasn't necessarily of like, oh, there wasn't effort, but it was like I asked for what I needed and then I got it and then I did it and then I grew a little bit more and then I got to this point and then I got to this point and then it just started, like I was just climbing the steps just so organically that even the hard work felt so natural for me. And I got to the point where I left Starbucks and it became and then my healing clients were even like, can we just get medium sessions? And then people kept referring me to people, and it just led to this amazing, incredible business, that I have now. And I still practice that. Like, even like currently, I'm coming up with some new programs and kind of um, like up leveling, if you will, or upgrading some of my work. And it's still in that process. It's God, what's divine will in this? What do you want me to teach? Like, what's your next level for me? Instead of
Yeah.
me trying to obsessively figure out like, what do people want to buy, or what's this? Like I
Yeah.
really stayed grounded in that divine will.
So talk a little bit about that, like, because so many of us we're trying to get to that next, right? That next thing. We're trying to follow our path. And
Mhm.
so there's the asking, right? And then
Mhm.
there's like surrender and there's trust. But like talk about that space of like listening and hearing the right things and knowing which direction to go. And
Yeah.
for like people that don't have such the loud voice like you
Mhm.
do, the loud guidance like you do.
Well, I feel like the biggest thing, and this is something that I really like, that I have to practice. I have to practice what I preach. It's like, 'cause otherwise I wouldn't, that's why I preach it, because I wouldn't be able to do what I do. But of like really prioritizing the quiet time and the alone time to check in, because what can happen, what I see in so many people and what I can easily do myself is like in those transitions of like, that you're growing and there's like something next for you. And especially when you feel something slipping away or when you just feel done with it, kind of either or, it's easy to go into panic of like, because this new thing hasn't shown up or gotten clear yet,
Mhm.
but this old thing isn't working either. And so it can be easy to go into that like survival mode and panic and like, I just need to do something and I just need to force it. I just need to figure it out. And so what I find is that physical movement, I still yoga. Now I also cold plunge, which has really helped me, be present in my body, meditation, those practices that help me get out of my head.
Mhm.
Working out is like, I have to, that's just for my mental clarity. Those things help kind of clear that channel of the noise. Cause I think
Yeah.
that's like the biggest thing is like, people don't hear it so loud because there's all the noise.
Yep.
'Cause
Absolutely.
even I can still get like that. So like for myself, when I have all my biasness and my stories, right? So it's like
Mhm.
going through, like when I sit down with a client, it's like God help me be a clear and perfect channel for this client. So it's the same thing. It's like I have to do that for myself then, of like, help me be a clear and perfect channel. Help me clear this worry, this obsession, this fear, all of that.
Yeah.
So that I can get quiet. And then it's asking just guide me and what the next step is.
Mm-hmm.
Really breaking it down. And that's where the faith and surrender like really comes in, because sometimes the next step, you're like, but really?
Yeah, we're like, not that one.
Yeah, like, isn't there something else?
Yeah. But
But it's like,
but when that same thing keeps showing up over and over again, then it's like, okay, then yeah, there's such, I hear so much surrender in everything that you're saying.
yeah.
And
And
I
I
know
think,
that's like a hard concept for some people who may be just starting out, just starting to learn how to listen to themselves and how to listen to that higher guidance.
and I
Um,
would say too, like, because I spent so long getting mixed up in beginning of my recovery of like, I almost went too far into surrender for a little bit, where I wasn't putting enough energy like in any direction. So it was
mhm,
almost like I was so open that nothing was happening.
right. Because it can be kind of um not like paralyzing, right?
Yeah,
Like,
it's almost like I got too passive with it.
yeah.
So you can also like you can still funnel energy in a direction.
Mhm. Even if
And
you're not sure if it's the right one.
mhm,
Mhm.
because like somehow it'll turn out. I mean, like I at least got into teaching, like God still got me here through all my resistance. Like that's like what boggles my mind of like that, like they had to go this roundabout way of like getting me to yoga and to, energy healing and then sober and then like
Yeah.
the divine can work with whatever you have going on. So it's like
Yeah.
there's no, they don't give up on us. Like we can give up on ourselves. So that's what I feel like. And to trust like those deep desires that like don't make the logical sense.
Hmm.
Like and I remember my mom took me to a spiritual advisor when I was like 13 or 14, and she said like, oh, you're going to be on TV, you're going to be helping people and like all of this stuff. And she's like, your biggest most important thing is to feel safe.
Hmm.
And which I feel like that's been a big theme in my life and in my recovery and my
Hmm.
work and relationships in every area of my life has been learning how to create safety
Yeah.
and determine what's safe and what's unsafe.
Hmm.
Uh, and now it's like I work with people who are on TV, but I look back then there was no internet. I'm like, she could have seen this and thought it was TV. Like you never know translation, but like, everything that she said of like helping people and having a successful business and doing my own thing and like being unique and different, like that's all kind of, happened in its own way. So, I feel like it was somewhat in the cards, but I feel like everybody has something that's in the cards too. And
Hmm.
like you were all created for a reason. So it's trusting those like deep, like, because I never knew how. I'm like, how am I going to be like on TV? Like, how am I going to help? Like, if I would have had to figure that out, I don't even know what I would have done. But so that's also, it's like trusting, it's like, okay, well, if I'm helping people and it's somehow publicized, maybe that's starting a podcast. Maybe
Hmm.
it's going on a Facebook Live and sharing my story. Maybe
Hmm.
it's like sharing my story at a support group or with more friends or, more people who are struggling, like, or starting to embrace this odd ability or talent that I have, or like, like, so I feel like it's listening to just those pulls, those
Yeah.
little inner pulls,
Hmm.
and just giving it a little more energy, a little more time, and then letting it, like, it will grow.
Yeah.
You don't have to know what it's all going to be.
Yes. You don't have to have control. You don't have to know every single step.
And you
It's like,
don't even have to like burn your whole life down.
right.
You know, like I was working full time and building a business. Like I didn't leave that job and like wasn't able to pay rent. And, you know, I didn't have parents that could financially support me a ton, you know, and they helped me out a little bit, but like we weren't that wealthy. So it's like, um, you know, I had to work my way to build this. And I'm so glad because it taught me so much. And like, I'm just so proud of the work and the effort that I put into creating this lifestyle. And I learned so much from that Starbucks job, even about like, so even that, like, you wouldn't think that would help this at all, but like, I learned how to read people like as customers, and I learned how to run, I was a manager, so I learned how to run a business.
Yeah.
Most of my like business running skills come from that job.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, so everything. Also, I think too, people are so afraid, or we get so stuck on like, what if I'm like derailed? But it's like everything serves a purpose.
Yeah.
You know, like even times when I've felt like I've gotten way off track, it somehow comes in to help a client or help somebody else struggling, or it teaches me something that I need to know down the road. Like it always somehow like plays an important role in this purpose that is just beyond me. You know, it's so far beyond me. It's like I couldn't, if I controlled it or thought of it, like it just wouldn't even be a success.
Right. Would be limiting ourselves. That's what we were talking about.
Mhm.
Yeah. Before the call, is that we limit ourselves sometimes in trying to have this grand plan and all these specific, trying to control things and say like, oh, if I do this, this, and this, it's going to turn out this way. And it's like, that's a lot of times we're limiting ourselves and blocking what's actually possible.
Yeah. Yeah, and I
Mhm.
think giving ourselves permission to say like, hey, I need more, you know, I'm ready for more. Show me what's next.
Yeah.
It's like my mantra, you know, of like, like, show me what's next, show me the solution, show me how to help this person. Like, that's always my prayer in times of question of like, show me this or teach me that. And like, um, I find that I always get some kind of an answer, and like it also comes through like random, when you don't have it as loud as I do, like it might come in the form of overhearing a conversation about something that just really catches your attention,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
or like somebody invites you somewhere and it ends up being something that like lights up this passion inside of you, and you're like, oh my gosh,
Yeah.
I could do this more. It's like those things of trusting those poles,
Yes. Absolutely.
and knowing too that like your story can help anyone, you know, like you don't have to be, I mean, there's no such thing as being like this perfect, like finished, like,
Right.
you
Yeah.
know, so, right, like
Yeah.
progress, not perfection. So it's like there, you don't have to get to some certain point before you're of use to
Yes.
other humans and to the divine. You can always help somebody.
Yeah.
And also, I think sometimes social media, like I've heard so many people say that like I feel like my story is not like bad enough to be helpful or inspirational. And I've had so many people tell me that like because my rock bottom wasn't that bad,
Yeah.
it helped them see that they maybe had an issue, and it helped them in their recovery.
Yeah.
So
I'm so glad you touched on that, because that was part of my story too, was like I didn't end up in the hospital or prison, or I didn't get in trouble or anything like that. So it was like, well, I can control this thing then. But
yeah.
it wasn't like that for me. And then it took me like hearing other people's stories and hearing that, other people didn't have that. Our bottoms can all look different.
Mhm.
And we get to say what that is.
And we can like sometimes now, you know, I think anytime too we want to change, like we get to say when anything's a bottom, even a success, like even when it's like I've done all that I came here to do at this role, or this place, or like when it's an ending,
Yeah.
that can be something that we like we have that permission to say like, okay, I feel done with this.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
Yeah.
please help me experience, better or more, or, or whatever's next, if you don't want to compare, So
Yeah.
like even in recovery, I'm always finding ways to expand my recovery.
Mm-hmm.
Like I've checked out recovery 2.0 stuff I really resonate with because of the yoga pieces of it. And
Yeah.
they say like I'm on a path of recovery and discovery, I believe, instead of I am an addict or an alcoholic. So, which I kind of like that too. And then just even reading books of like Ayurveda and recovery, and then my own spiritual growth. Like I think that's too, like we forget, like we limit ourselves and we think like, okay, so this works, this is where I am. Like, just like, I was doing readings, I'm successful doing only readings. And then it was like this pull to like start teaching classes. And it's like, oh my God, like, what does that look like?
Right. There's these whole other worlds, right? And it doesn't have to look a certain way forever. Like
Yep.
this one thing could be what's working for me right now, but I can change that at any time if I need to. I
Yeah.
love that about my recovery. And I love that about your recovery too, that you share that. Like it doesn't have to be AA, or it doesn't have to be, there's so many different programs and there's so many different things. And you don't have to label yourself an alcoholic or an addict to change your relationship with those things.
Mm.
So that's like one of my biggest one of my favorite messages and passions is to help people see that, because I know, like we were saying, there is this very well known way that alcoholism looks, and it doesn't always look that way for everybody.
Mm-hmm.
The options are endless for recovery.
Yeah. Yeah. And like, it's just really, it's like, you can just say like, okay, my relationship with alcohol is a little dysfunctional right now.
Right.
Or like I look at like addiction as more of like an allergy, like they talk about in the big book, like it's a physical condition that happens when I take a drink versus like this sickness that I'm forever stuck with.
Mm-hmm.
Like I don't drink, I'm committed to my sobriety and I don't have any desire to drink anymore. But but I don't view it as that I'm sick.
Yeah. Yeah.
Either, and I feel like recovery from anything, addiction, trauma, illness, like I dealt with some autoimmune stuff, and I use this whole premise of recovery to help me with that. And like I feel like just recovery from anything, a divorce,
Yeah.
anything at all, it just takes us like that path of recovery takes us to a new level of thriving.
Yeah.
And so I feel like if we can just learn that it doesn't have to be about surviving, like it actually carries us into thriving again. It maybe makes it a little more hopeful.
Yeah. A little less intimidating.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I'm She Recovers coach. I don't know if you've heard of them.
Yes.
Yeah.
Amazing.
And one of their principles is that we are all recovering from something. And I just love that, because it's like we are, like, this life is hard and we've all got different challenges and struggles and things that we're recovering from.
Mm-hmm.
And those pathways of recovery can be applied to, like you were saying, like addiction, trauma, divorce, so many things.
Yeah, and then it takes, it really, because I just really feel like that belief of like we're different
Mm-hmm.
is so outdated, because I feel like in reality we're all different and that we're all unique.
Yeah.
But so many of us, addict, non-addict, issues with any kind of addictive tendencies or not, like struggle with that feeling of I'm different, but I want to belong.
Yeah.
Be loved.
Yeah.
you know, in whatever way. So it's like, once we realize like we're the same and that we all go through that feeling, it's like, it just takes away that shame.
Yeah. Yeah.
There's no shame. It's like everybody goes through this.
Yeah. We're all human. We're all
Whole like that's your guys' stuff, like, is just not true.
yeah. Yeah.
You know, like, because it's, I mean, I have some clients who are, I mean, CEOs, director, you know, like, I mean, really incredibly successful people, and they deal with all of these things. So
Yeah. Yes.
definitely not
Yeah.
not something that's like going through any kind of these obstacles, like it can feel you to create magic in the world.
Yes.
It's not something wrong with us.
Yeah. Magic in your life,
Mm-hmm.
magic in your experience of life. And it doesn't even have to be, you know, some grand thing. It could just be your life. Like it's a beautiful journey.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I feel like we could talk forever.
I know. I just looked at the time. I'm like, I was
I
supposed to be
know.
helping keep track.
I know that's going to be my biggest
This is
struggle.
like a good note to end on. I feel like this is the perfect,
Yes.
you know, use your struggle to create magic in your life and in the world.
Absolutely. Okay. So my last little question for you. So what do you tell us about the work that you're doing right now and kind of your offerings and where people can find you?
Okay. So my website is sarahreneeinc.com. And then I'm also on Instagram as medium Sarah Renee. And then from there, you can find me on Facebook too. But so I'm still seeing clients one-on-one for readings, either to bring through your loved ones from the other side or, you know, guidance. And then I'm putting together it's going to be a 6-month course that's going to start in April. I'm really excited about it. It's a brand new offering, kind of combining a bunch of other classes that I've done around intuition and healing work. And so like self-healing and opening up your intuitive abilities and creating boundaries and all the things that I've had to learn, you know, and so that's going to start in April. So it'll probably open up this month. And then, yeah, those are the main ways to work with me directly right now. I'm going to be launching another like shorter course probably after the 6-month one is going, a little more towards summer. I always like to do a course over summer. I feel like summer brings this kind of transformation energy all on its own. So
Cool.
yes, but you can find all of that. It's all on my website where I post about it. I have a weekly energy update where I just like tune in and email out what the guides say the weekly energy is going to be like. And they always send through like some guidance, some things that you can practice to do that. And then a channeled mantra for your week. So you're welcome to sign up for that and get on my email list. I don't bombard. That's like, you get that email once a week and then maybe a new email when I'm doing a new offering. And I don't send emails every day. I like to tell people that, like, I won't.
Yeah, I know we get so many emails.
Inbox, like,
Yeah.
But yeah, and then on Instagram, I do like full moon meditations and I share client stories. So that's kind of like a fun way to kind of feel me out, see my testimonials, like, you know, see what client stories are like and kind of determine, you know, if you resonate or not. So
Yeah, I was going to say that. I love your Instagram meditations that you've done. I've done a couple of them and they're like really powerful. So that's a really good way to find out more about Sarah and experience what she does. It's just amazing work. So again, and I thank you so much for coming on and sharing so much of yourself. And I just love you. And I'm so honored to call you my friend.
yay, I love you too. And I'm so excited that you're doing this and that you're coaching and all of that. So thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Good night, everyone.
Good night.